Imagine a chateau lifestyle, living in a mansion, a summer house, or a beach home. Imagine having the ability to travel wherever you want and having a place to stay that builds equity and wealth. Hi, I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets. There is a concept that is common among family offices, wealthy individuals, and legacy estates. And this is a simple concept that you can implement right now. In fact, you likely know somebody who's already doing this. Have you ever heard somebody say, well, I'm going to spend the weekend at the cabin? And you think, well, wow, that's nice to have a cabin. Hey, we're going to go to the beach house this summer. Well, these families have done something that is not unique, but it tends to be unusual in the high-income family. See, a lot of high-income families will scrimp and save and go to Disneyland, and they'll go to these resorts, and they'll spend and enjoy, yet often be paying for their vacation years after they've taken it. And this accumulates either in debt or regret and frustration. Yet some families will pool their resources and buy a summer cottage. They'll pool their resources and buy a hunting cabin. Actually, it doesn't have to be family members. I know a number of individuals who have several hunting cabins that are owned in a collective or a hunting lodge or club. I know individuals who have beach homes that they use 2 to 3 weeks out of the year, gain a tax deduction from as a rental property, and then during several seasons rent those properties out, receiving twice the amount of cash flow necessary to maintain the property. Now, there's more to it than just getting together with a couple of friends. I've actually put together a special report on the steps necessary to have a cash positive vacation home, rental vacation, estate, or farm. Now, there are conditions why you might want to have a farm rather than a recreational property. A farm can provide to you homegrown and quality foods that are very often an agricultural tax deduction. And in the case of a friend of mine, he actually has a large farm that is set up as a nonprofit. And so the large farm is actually part of his job. It's a teaching institute, and it offers both his lifestyle, but educates other individuals about skills that they desire to learn. He just happens to have these skills and enjoys certifying in these skill areas. And the farm is owned by not himself, but a number of family members, and they again also come out and enjoy the property. By doing this, it reduces the liability of any single individual, it spreads out costs, and overall improves the opportunity to have a larger valued property. I was looking at a property that was $3 million. Now, I don't have any business buying a $3 million house that I live in. However, this particular property had an ongoing farm, it had a large estate house, and it had a small caretaker cottage. Well, I did the numbers, and if I place a caretaker in the cottage and rent the home out, the home would actually have positive net cash flow. The only challenge that I had is that the property was too far from my home, so I would need to have a couple investors involved that were closer who could check the property. It wouldn't fit for my needs. But here's the powerful thing about this concept, and this is the big idea that you really need to understand, is that you can find properties that ideally fit your needs. I was able to find a property that was closer to me with a smaller house, but multiple house sites that we're looking at to set up a small cottage, and then several other house sites on there for use as Airbnb. Now, of course, COVID came along, so we've adjusted that plan, and I've instead moved the agricultural components out to a nonprofit farm where I'm now receiving tax deductions for the contributions I put into that activity. Now, it's different for everybody. I bought the house next door to me so that I could rent the property out, have tax deductions, and gain access to the back of the property, which was my primary residence. I'm giving you examples that I have, but again, there are hundreds of examples that I've gone over in my report and program that I can help you get the summer cottage, the beach home, the campsite, a church retreat center. This church we were going to has a retreat center in Lynchburg, Virginia, where a church council got together and bought an entire conference facility. Now, they did this like 40 years ago, but imagine the 40 years of experience and time where they are able to take once a year, they can go and relax. But meanwhile, during the course of the year, the property is rented out, the property is in full use, and it's positive net cash flow. Now, there are different structures you can use. You can set up a business, you can set up a farm, you can set up a nonprofit, you could even set up a church. Have you ever wondered why many of these chateaus and large mansions of in the European areas had their own chapels? Well, it was the family chapel. It was the family place for prayer, yet it was also used by the community, and by the community using the property, the community often contributed. The key concept here is that going together as a small community, whether it's a hunting lodge, whether it's friends and family, whether it's just family, you're able to afford more while reducing your risks. And this is very powerful because, again, these houses are going to have maintenance, they're going to have schedules, they're going to have needs beyond the simple ownership. But what's very powerful is that you can own, and in fact, there's two brothers that I know about. One owns a hunting lodge or cabin in New York, and one owns a hunting lodge or cabin in the mountains of Virginia. Now, when I say hunting lodge or cabin, this could start out as simply as a small cabin on a large piece of property. But for some, they have hunting lodges. They have 10,000 square foot houses that are in the middle of the mountains that they use just once or twice a year. But again, if you could take a month-long vacation for the cost of a weekend somewhere, and think about this, people are going to Disney World for 4 days and maybe an extended weekend, and they're spending $3,000 to $4,000. Imagine being able to stay a whole month someplace for that much. It wouldn't make such a big deal. And actually, these are great positioning as you move into retirement. Now, there are some questions that people ask about this, like how do we afford the dream property, the ideal space that we've always wanted? There's questions like, well, do we get a big place or a small place? Or what about doing a timeshare rather than buying our own property and managing our own property? Well, there are advantages and disadvantages to each of these elements that you would want to talk about with your CPA. In some cases, it is better to buy a farm because you have an agricultural interest, but maybe you don't care anything about agriculture and you just want hunting and fishing. So again, if you're going to want hunting and fishing, it's going to be a different piece of land than if you want agriculture. Near where I live here, we have a Turkey Cock Mountain, and there's a lot of land that has bear, deer, and turkey. It's very mountainous. It is not good land for agriculture. You have to have more of a level land for agriculture or more level growing spaces. Do you need to have a house on the property? Or can you get away with a small hunting cabin? If you have a hunting cabin, what's the zoning? These are factors that we can develop in a plan. And in fact, with my permaculture design experience and my project planning experience, we tend to build out a simple business plan because there is the potential for this property to pay for itself. A friend of the family owns an apartment building on the beach at Virginia Beach. Now, it's not on the beach because there's a bunch of hotels there. It's actually off the beach far enough that you can walk to the beach, but you're out of the noise and sound. That property in 1/3 of the year produces 2 times the cost of the property for the whole year. That gives them 2 off-season weeks that they often share out or rent out because there are still conferences. So people will actually rent the efficiency or an apartment, and it saves the company money from putting people in hotels, yet is a premium rate of rent for the space. During the summer and peak seasons, they don't bother to stay there anymore. They bought a house more in town because they make so much money off of the property. They have one person who goes and unlocks the place, lets in tenants, cleans afterwards, and does inspections. So kind of a property manager. And this property is cash flowing like crazy. And see, that's how you can afford something that's much larger. Now, the initial seed funding for this was a pool of people, and they have since bought out everybody. But ultimately, it's about choice. It's about having more choice. Now, I could go into this for details, but I'm in between two activities, and it's time for me to wrap up. I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets, and this has been about how to have that vacation dream cottage, how to have that hunting lodge, how to have that European vacation experience, all in such a way that it builds equity in a property that you own, or a company that you control owns, or a nonprofit owns that you have a benefit from, and how to create significant advantage so that these can be perpetual homes. It's a very popular topic in Europe and Asia to have these homesteads or these estates that are passed down generation to generation because essentially they pay for themselves. If you have any questions about this topic, I am thinking about doing a larger program about it because I have so many valuable examples ranging from extremely wealthy families to average working class individuals who have been able to build wealth. Again, when you own or control these properties, it's on your balance sheet. And you are able to, in many cases, gain cash flow. So it's an exciting opportunity. If you have questions about this or anything I cover, visit me at www.sustainablewealthsecrets.com, where we help high-income families and entrepreneurs upgrade their lifestyle while boosting free net cash flow and building their net worth. Thanks for listening.